123 years ago, Dr. Horatio Nelson Jackson and Sewell Crocker began a transcontinental trip across the United States in a horseless carriage. They drove a Winton automobile manufactured by the Winton Motor Carriage Company in Cleveland, Ohio. This comfortable horseless carriage had a two-cylinder, 20-horsepower motor. Jackson and Crocker named their 1903 touring car the Vermont. They departed San Francisco on Saturday, May 23, 1903, bound for New York City. Halfway through the state of Idaho, they acquired their mascot, Bud the Bulldog. Wait a minute! 2 men and a bulldog in a car? Seriously? Let me tell you about the first person to cross the United States on a motorized vehicle, George Wyman. The California motor bicycle that George Wyman rode across the United States is a far cry from the Winton touring car that Jackson, Crocker, and Bud drove in 1903. The California Motor Company used an ordinary diamond-framed bicycle and attached a 90cc, 1.25 horsepower, 4-stroke engine. The bike had wooden rims and a Garford spring saddle, which was the only suspension the bike had. A leather belt drive transferred the power from the engine to the rear wheel. George's California motor bicycle weighed 80 pounds and was capable of speeds up to 25 miles per hour on flat, dry roads with no headwind. Often George would pedal the bicycle due to the lack of power from the single-cylinder motor. George Wyman's journey across America began at Lotta's Fountain in San Francisco on May 16, 1903 at 2:30 in the afternoon. The next morning, May 17th, he left Vallejo, California at 7:20 and began riding toward the Sierra Mountains. Writing in his journal and taking photos with his pocket Kodak camera along the way, George's adventures are well documented. This is an excerpt describing his first day's travel.
13 miles out of Vallejo, the road was a succession of land waves, one steep hill succeeded by another, but the motor was working like clockwork and covered the distance in but a few moments over the hour, and in the face of a wind the force of which was constantly increasing. Finally, it actually blew the motor to a standstill. I promptly dismounted and broke off the muffler. The added power proved equal to the emergency, and the wind ceased to worry. My next dismount was rather sudden. While going well and with no thought of the road, I ran full tilt into a patch of sand. I landed ungracefully, but unharmed 10 feet away. The fall, however, broke my cyclometer and also cracked the glass of the oil cup in the motor, damage which the plentiful use of tire tape at least temporarily repaired.
Using the power of a gasoline engine for transportation was in its infancy around 1900. In general, successfully attaching a motor to a bicycle was thought to be a foolish concept, and bicycle shops in large cities were the only ones experimenting with the idea. This is the result when I asked Google AI how many motorcycles there were in Noble County in 1903. Listen to the entry in George's journal about the curiosity of the people when he arrived in Ligonier the evening of June 24, 1903.
I thought that when I got east of Chicago, folks would know what a motor bicycle is, but it was not so. In every place through which I passed, I left behind a gaping lot of natives, who ran out into the street to stare after me. When I reached Ligonier, I rode through the main street and by mistake went past the hotel where I wanted to stop. When I turned and rode back, the streets looked as though there was a circus in town. All the shopkeepers were out on the sidewalks to see the motor bicycle, and small boys were there as thick as flies in a country restaurant. When I dismounted in front of the hotel, the crowd became so big and the curiosity so great that I deemed it best to take the bicycle inside.
There's a lot more to be learned from George and his daunting feat of crossing the United States on a motor bicycle in 1903. However, the question remains, why should we be interested in George Wyman's journey? Because from Ligonier, he rode east on US 6 through Wawaka, and George Wyman rode his California motor bicycle through downtown Kendallville. That's why Noble County shares the history of the first person to cross the United States on a motorized vehicle.
At 8 a.m. on June 25th, I left Ligonier and struck out over a sand road through a rolling and fertile farming country to Wawaka, where I came to a stone road and had good riding to Kendallville.
Imagine George riding through downtown Kendallville. I'm sure the people on the sidewalks froze in their tracks and stared as the California motorcycle whizzed by, heading south at 25 miles per hour. Wagons and buggies on Main Street struggled to get out of the way of the strange machine carrying George. Horses were surprised and reared from the noise of the single-cylinder motor. The storefronts loudly echoed the sound. People stared in amazement and listened to the motor fading until George turned east on Waits Road. As surprising as this moment in Kendallville's history was, the excitement soon faded. George Wyman's ride across Noble County has been forgotten, but not anymore. On Saturday, June 27, 2026, this historic event in American history, in Noble County's history, will be celebrated at Kendallville Powersports at the corner of US 6 and State Road 3. Enjoy the many motorcycles featured in the Vintage Motorcycle Show. There will be all kinds of motorcycles, old, not so old, modified, custom motorcycles, and everything in between. Celebrate by retracing George Wyman's ride across Noble County. Start at Janus Motorcycles, located in Goshen, Indiana, and arrive at Kendallville Powersports for the festival as we celebrate George Wyman. Register for the Goshen to Kendallville ride on the Janus Motorcycle webpage. Registration is under the Events tab. The downtown Kendallville merchants will have so much for you to enjoy at the George Wyman Festival. There will be a hot dog eating contest. How fast can you eat 10 hot dogs? Sponsored by Jen's Bistro. On the main boutique and gifts, we'll have items you can't resist. Whatchamacakes will have delicious treats that will have you craving for more. Many more downtown Kendallville merchants will be at the George Wyman Festival. Along with Kendallville merchants, there will be historical organizations of Kendallville and Noble County.
They're creepy and they're kooky.
Gaslight Playhouse will present a preview of the upcoming musical.
The Addams Family. The house is.
There will be a windmill. Yes, a real windmill from the Mid-America Windmill Museum. Beautiful vintage motorcycles, downtown Kendallville merchants, and local organizations will make the George Wyman Festival an event you will remember. Celebrate. Witness George Wyman's legacy being cemented into the history of Noble County. At 1 p.m., Tim Masterson, president of the George Wyman Project, will present bronze plaques marking George's journey across Noble County to Lance Waters, mayor of Kendallville, and Bill Schultz, president of the Noble County Historical Society of Indiana. After the Wyman plaque dedication ceremony, interested riders will continue George's route through downtown Kendallville, then turn east on Waits Road and culminate in Butler, Indiana. Or stay in Kendallville. The Kendallville Heritage Association has assembled a self-guided tour for you to enjoy our beautiful historic businesses, notable homes, and the unbelievable Kendallville City parks. Don't be in a hurry to leave our charming city, but if you must go, please come back. We will always remember George Wyman's ride across Noble County and through downtown Kendallville, Indiana. Celebrate his remarkable accomplishment of being the first person to ride from San Francisco, California to New York City on a motorized vehicle, to ride from Ligonier to Butler, Indiana, to ride through our city, downtown Kendallville.